As a preterist, I'm often asked, well, as one who believes all prophecy has been fulfilled, what is the future of the world going to be? If it's not going to be this paradise that I have imagined through my erroneous futurist interpretations of prophecy, then what is it going to be like? And my response is, well, now that we live in the new covenant, an age without end, we have the resources, we have the spiritual maturity to manifest the kingdom on the earth. We have the, the capacity to fulfill the very will of God here, now. And we have this planet, and yes, there's been conflict and there's been death on the earth, physical, right? But we now live in an age of spiritual life, and we can manifest this life to others. And it's on this world as it is now that we learn to grow, and we come through the turmoil that we need to, until we can all come together and resolve ourselves to conform to the image of Christ. Now, I believe in a living God. I believe that Jesus Christ is alive, and I believe that he communicates with his saints in various ways. And one such way that I believe he communicates with his saints is through a phenomenon known as near-death experience. Now, you got to take it with a grain of salt, because, you don't know who's playing you. But there's one guy whose near-death experience account I take to be true. I consider it to be a truthful account. At the very least, he's convinced of it. I know that much. He's not somebody who's out to lie for gain. That's not in the nature of this man. And so I believe it's worth listening to him, because he gives some rather remarkable insights into the future. And this is what was shown to him during his near-death experience. So I'll let this play. Okay.
The world that they showed me in the near future, in a couple hundred years from now, is a world that is difficult for me to understand or accept. There was what I saw was no visible signs of technology. If there was technology, they hid it from me, or it was so subtle that I couldn't even see it. Maybe that's the case, but I assumed that, like, in the future, it would be a world of, like, high technology, and they showed me a world of not low technology, of no technology, where people's relationship with God, with the creation, and with one another was so intense that human beings controlled the weather of the planet. Not just for the welfare of human beings, but for the welfare of the entire planet. Everybody in the world was telepathically connected to everybody else in the whole world. People raised food by simply meditating or thinking about the food, and the food would just grow, and then they would pick it and eat it. I mean, it was, not instantaneous, but just happened before your eyes. I mean, a cabbage would grow from a seed to a full-blown cabbage in a matter of a few minutes. People lived in small communities. People could move from community to community freely if they wanted to. Most people didn't move around very much. Some communities put an emphasis on music, some communities put an emphasis on science, some communities put an emphasis on celebration, liturgy, worship. Some communities spent their time on physical relaxation and enjoyment, sports, and that sort of thing. Some communities were very contemplative and did seemingly very little. Some communities were very active and sort of like were very much engaged with their environment, sort of what we would call gardeners, but they were literally environmental sculptors, making these very beautiful places with the vegetation and the geology around them. I mean, different communities had different emphasis, but they lived in total harmony with the flora and the fauna around them, in complete harmony with one another. And the main emphasis of every community was the individuals in the community, and most especially the children. When people had experienced what they felt was their full life experience, there would be a great celebration, and they would lay down, and they would die, and their souls, their spirits, whatever, would be raised up to heaven. Dying was not seen as a sad thing or grievous thing. It was a joyous time. It was celebrated as a birth. People ate simply, dressed simply. From what I was shown, there were no possessions other than the clothes on their back and a few simple instruments like musical instruments or tools or things like that, which were pretty much shared communally. It was a world that's very difficult for me to make any sense of, because it's like, there was great happiness, there was very little suffering, there was no disease because people could, with laying on of hands, people could heal diseases immediately. The only real suffering that they showed me was sometimes people felt a sense of separateness, and the community would allow these people to feel that, but they would pray for that person. They would surround that person with love and bring that person back into the community. So it was possible for people to move a little bit away from the spirit of the community, but they were brought back into the community. No one was left. No one was ever lost for very long. But it was important sometimes for people to feel, to appreciate what they had. They needed to, lose a little bit of it once in a while. The Spirit of Christ lived in every heart, fully and completely. It's a world that is so completely unlike the world that we live in, that just how can we ever get there? But they assured me that this was the world that God envisioned for us, and it's not that far away.
The interesting thing to note here is that Howard Storm is not a preterist, he's a futurist, but in his vision there is no second coming of Christ as the futurists expect, or as he would expect. Instead, what we have is a world where people have resolved things, they've come together, they've conformed themselves to the image of Christ, and they live in harmony. That's the future we can have here on earth, if only we would work toward it. Every day, in every action. God bless.